Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Good to see you. Hello, Snutter. Hello, CC. It's good to see you guys. All right, so I decided to do a little stream today because why not? Might as well. Got some things to discuss today. Now, I have to start off with some news that it's entertainment news, and it's not good. Okay? It's not positive. So, my beloved friend Karsten and my show producer, Karsten, went to see the new Lilo and Stitch. And he says that the movie is terrible. I know, how can it be terrible? Stitch is adorable, especially when he's sad and he opens those eyes and he puts his ears back and everything. He said the movie is awful. It is awful. They have left out critical plot points from the original animation. They've tacked on a weird ending to it. And I'm not going to give away spoilers. I think I may ask Karsten, hi Cheryl, if he wants to pop on maybe tomorrow to give a full review of the movie. But he said that if you're a fan of the original, that you will not like this one. And I went on Rotten Tomatoes and I noticed that the audience score is very high and the critic score is not so high. Hi Gata, it's good to see you. He said that he was completely deceived by the trailer, by the cuteness of the trailer, and that it's basically a disaster. So I think the movie is going to make a mint anyway. And speaking of mints, so he sent me a link to the review by Grace from Beyond the Trailer. She said that in 2024, and I hope I'm getting this right, she said that Disney has sold over $2 billion worth of merch of Stitch. Lilo, not so much, but Stitch. And Grace from Beyond the Trailer, her theory is that this movie feels like one big advertisement to drive people to buy Stitch merch. That's it. So Disney continues to fuck up its live action adaptations. When we were listening to Rachel Zegler run her mouth about Snow White and why it is that there were updates and changes made to the story, and she made the excuse that the original movie was made in the 1930s, and she said, and very evidently so. Well, Lilo and Stitch was made in the early 2000s. So what was the need to strip out elements of that story? But yeah, I hear it's awful. I'm going to see if Karsten can come on and let us know. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. The other thing that Karsten said, I don't want to steal his thunder in case he decides to come on. This live action adaptation was originally made to be broadcast on Disney Plus. So in other words, it was made for TV. And Karsten was saying that the budget was $100 million and that there's no evidence of where that money went. Hi, Sour. And that it is obvious. He said the editing is bad. And there are a lot of elements of the movie that give you that made-for-TV movie feel. It's not cinematic, in other words. So I said to Karsten, I said, I've got a question for you that I know you can't answer. I said, what the hell is going on at Disney? Why are they doing this? I mean, did the entire company, take a fall and hit its head and now they don't know where they're going or what happened to their sense of direction or whatever? Why are they doing this? Are there no adults in the room? Yeah, I mean, the Cinderella adaptation was gorgeous. It was gorgeous, and when you think about that string of hits that they had around the time that they bought ABC in the 90s, you think to yourself, what could have gone so wrong that nowadays they can't seem to put a foot right? And I understand that the next Marvel release, I guess it's the Fantastic Four, is going to flop hugely. So they can't get anything right. They can't do it. I was convinced that Lilo and Stitch, based on the trailer, I thought, oh, this is going to be Disney's redemption movie, because the marketing campaign is so good and Stitch is so cute and they're doing such a good job with it. No. I'm sure it'll make a mint. I have no doubt that it's going to make a lot of money. But it's not, it's a bait and switch. It's the movie equivalent of clickbait. So anyway, that is what I have heard. Wanted to pass that on. I understand that a number of people are losing their minds. I hear that iDubbbz and Anissa did a podcast recently where they are openly encouraging people or condoning theft. That if somebody, that Anissa said that nobody should be wearing a ring that is valued at over $1,000. And both of them agreed that if you see somebody walking down the street with an expensive item in tow, that you as a member of the public should feel free to steal it. Well, okay. And speaking of stealing, I don't know if you guys have seen the footage, but Bill Maher, Woody Harrelson, and John McEnroe have all invested in this dispensary. I don't know if it's only one. Oh God, oh no. I hope not. It's enough now. Let's leave Snow White alone, shall we? Please, no more Snow White. Or if somebody's going to do Snow White, let somebody other than Disney do Snow White, because it's a disaster. Now, there was and I think that there still is, a version of Snow White starring Brett Cooper that was produced by the Daily Wire. Now that Brett Cooper has left the Daily Wire, I don't know if they're still going to release it. But the last time that Karsten looked on IMDb, it said it was still in production. So I don't know. So maybe that's the answer for Snow White. Okay, so these guys have invested in a dispensary, and it was robbed. And apparently it's not the first time it's been robbed. And the CCTV inside, the security cameras filmed the robbery. And one of the robbers looked like he was about 8 years old, a child. Similarly, in Baltimore, there have been robberies that have been caught on camera where children have been used to rob, bystanders or people with a pizza or steal their stuff or whatever. And Negz and I watched a video not so long ago by that guy, I think his channel name is Jordan Cash, who documents the horrors of New York City. And he said that Venezuelan gangs are recruiting children to be part of like an almost like Oliver Twist-like group of pickpockets and thieves and robbers and stuff. And the advantage that they have is that they're young, and they won't face the same penalties that an adult would. So I guess this business of recruiting children as part of thieving, robbery, burglary gangs is now catching on in other states. Okay. Now we're about to go into the shooting part, the DC shooting part. I don't think it'll surprise anyone to hear that Hassan Piker went full Alex Jones and suggested that it was a false flag operation. Of course he did. Meanwhile, there were tons of people on social media who were praising it, just like they praised that murderer Luigi Mangione. And interestingly, I don't think that the guy has started a Give, Send, Go or a GoFundMe. I think that he didn't have time. And I wonder if he did start one, how much would he raise? How much money would this killer raise? And the filing, the legal filing against him stated that the only reason that he did not kill more people at the museum was because his gun jammed. But he had every intention of taking down as many people as possible. So the theory, hello, my love. Hello, my darling Negz. The theory that he went and he specifically targeted those two individuals from the embassy, it doesn't hold water. He went to a Jewish event at a Jewish museum. He opened fire. He happened to kill two Israeli embassy employees. And the details of what happened after he shot the woman are absolutely grotesque. Grotesque. The woman had been shot. She was on the floor and she was crawling away. And he shot her in the back multiple times. So I guess he was trying to recreate the magic of October 7th. Luckily, he did not mutilate the corpse or rape it the way that Hamas did, or the Palestinian savages did, at the Nova Music site. But again, maybe if he had been given time, he would have done so. Because clearly he was idolizing his savage, raping, murdering heroes in Hamas. So, hi, Jarella. If only he had been given more time, just a few more minutes. Thank you, my love. Thank you for gifting memberships. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, my love. And enjoy your memberships, guys. Everybody enjoy your memberships. All right. Now we're going to start with Xavier, my fave. And then we are going to move on to the absolutely demented world of Pride in the UK in one specific city, where apparently the organizing committee is trying to prevent gay people from going to Pride. And yes, you heard me correctly. Yep. So, oh my God, Dark Ninja got a membership? Okay, of course. Yeah, all my supposed A-logs and Negz's A-logs love to lurk in here. I don't know why. Just go ahead and join the chat if you're going to lurk. And then I'll know to block you if you act up. All right. Why? Why? What's the difference? Why would they do that? This, though, is even worse. All right? This Pride thing is insane, what's happening in the UK. All right. Here's Xavier. Now, you know how I feel about Xavier. I am a huge fan. And so I am encouraging everybody to subscribe to him. Hello, Goral. The link to his channel is in the description box. He is fabulous. He really is. I love his delivery. I love his points of view. We don't always agree, but I think he's great. And I would definitely take a walk with him. Definitely. I love the way he used to go on Twitter with his drink, and he would say, "Walk with me." And then there would be a cut, and then he would go into his talk, and it's like, okay, I'll walk with you. Sure. Sure, let me grab me a strawberry acai refresher with lemonade over at Starbucks, and I will walk with you. I would be glad to. I will walk with you any day of the week. All right, let's go.
And humans, an innocent couple, were hatefully murdered simply for being at a Jewish event. Let's play the video just to break down the whole situation.
First developing news out of Washington, D.C. Authorities confirming tonight 2 Israeli embassy staff members have been killed in a targeted shooting right outside the Jewish Museum. D.C. police saying the 30-year-old suspect yelled "Free Palestine" after he was taken into custody. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Meeback.
And I'm Claudine Wong. Metropolitan Police in Washington just gave an update on that shooting in the last hour. Police say they received a call about 4 hours ago of a shooting outside of the Capitol Jewish Museum. An event was going on inside. Officers say they found a man and a woman dead at the scene. The suspect was taken into custody inside the museum shortly thereafter. Police have identified the suspected shooter as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago. Investigators were also able to retrieve the weapon. A witness at the scene says the museum was hosting an annual event of young Jewish diplomats.
Did see whom I believe is the perpetrator. Again, I did not see the shooting. He seemed very distressed, so I assumed he was a witness to it, and I offered him water. He said yes. I went to get him water. The moment I handed him the glass of water, he then whipped out a red Jordanian kufiya and said "Free Palestine," and then the security ran in.
You have to be a different level of maniac to murder 2 people, run inside of the place that they were going to, and then pretend like you're the one in distress, asking for water and hydration, and then to go and to scream "Free Palestine." This is what I'm talking about. We can play dumb all we want. When people are screaming "Free Palestine," "River to the Sea," all of these different chants, we know what they mean. They mean they want to see the harm of Jews. So now you have this innocent couple, Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgram, who were planning their engagement. They were a young couple committed to fostering Arab and Jewish dialogue, and they were killed by this maniac. 2 young lives cut short.
Yeah, and a reminder that the majority of the kibbutzim in the Gaza envelope, the ones that were attacked on October 7th, the kibbutzim that hired Palestinians from the Gaza Strip to come and work on the grounds in a variety of jobs, were very left-wing kibbutzim for the most part, which is why they were inviting these Palestinians into their enclaves. They were very kind to their workers. They paid them fairly. The workers were making a lot more money working on these kibbutzim than they would make on the Strip. And the thanks that they got in return was to be mass murdered and raped and have their homes set on fire and their pets killed by those savages. So, yep.
And this was outside of the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. They were attending an event that was focused on Middle East bridge building. So again, these are 2 people who really were there to try to bring peace, to try to bring some understanding, to try to have some dialogue. But then you have Elias Rodriguez, who out here is shouting "Free Palestine." It's just focused on nothing but hatred.
You know, you guys know, I went to the Nova Music site. I went to the Gaza envelope last June. And I saw the bomb shelters and the other shelters that were riddled with bullets, with bullet holes, I mean. And, you know, the testimonies and the tributes that were left inside the bomb shelter after October 7th. And I thought, I've seen so much video of the terrorists themselves, the so-called innocent Palestinians, filmed of themselves on those GoPros and proudly uploaded and boasted about. And all of the footage was grotesque. I still haven't seen that 45-minute compilation video that was previously only available to the press and, you know, high-level officials. It's now gone public. I haven't watched it because I don't have the heart to watch it. I've seen enough. But of all the footage that I saw that was just all a nightmare, the video clip that gave me the most nightmares, the one that really demonstrated what kind of people these people are from the Gaza Strip, was the footage of the Thai migrant worker who these Palestinians were trying to behead with a garden hoe. I don't want to describe it in too much detail. I think that you get the picture. This man was not Jewish. This man was a migrant worker from Thailand. There are a lot of Thai and Filipino workers in Israel. The Filipinos tend to be the caregivers, the ones who take care of the elderly and people with dementia and health problems and so on. They're like the live-in healthcare workers. and the ties work in the field. This is just the way it worked out. You know, they pick the oranges and take care of the livestock on the kibbutzim and that kind of thing. The savagery of that video clip, demonstrating that it's not just a hatred that is projected onto Jews. I mean, it is primarily, but the fact that they're such animals, these people, that they would be willing to kill a man from Thailand who came over to Israel to work and earn money for his family back in Thailand. And the method that they used to kill him was so graphic, so savage, so disgusting. And it's funny, we don't hear about those images, do we? We hear a lot of denial that, oh, we don't know if women were raped because, we don't have photographs of it, we don't have video evidence of it, and we don't have forensic evidence, and blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of bullshit involving that. But nobody can deny that they actually did go after the migrant workers, and a lot of those people were taken hostage and eventually released. We don't hear about that. It's funny how these pro-Palestine, free Palestine people don't mention the Thai hostages or the Ethiopian hostages, for example. So, all right, let's continue with Xavier.
And this again shows why I keep saying, and you're going to hear Noy Lieb talk about this next week, because we did an interview that we're dropping on Tuesday that I'm really excited for you guys to see. But, he explained it to me how the IDF and people who are pro-Israel are fighting because they love the people behind them. These Hamas supporters are fighting because they hate the people in front of them.
Yep.
And that is showcased very clearly and evidently by Elias Rodriguez, this 30-year-old from Chicago that was just detained. And, I think it's worth noting that Elias Rodriguez is linked to the Party for Socialism and Liberation through, even though the group is now denying any current affiliation, this is the background that guy has. And when I say socialism, Marxism, communism, all connected. They all lead to the demise of society and to death. Okay. And when we sit here and we talk about the bloody hands of anti-Semitism, we really have to look at a number of different places. But specifically, I want to start with the media, because the media is so corrupt and so biased to the point that it frustrates me beyond comprehension. Shout out to Jonah Plott. He has a podcast called the Being Jewish Podcast. He posted this today, and I thought that this was a really good demonstration on how this cycle tends to work, how blood libel spreads. So Hamas terrorists fabricate anti-Israel data. They send it over, and then it's reported by the Gaza Health Ministry, aka Hamas.
Right.
Then it is parroted without qualification by groups like the United Nations.
Of course.
Then it's quickly amplified by news media without any verification. It spreads across social media by eager anti-Israel users. And then Hamas encouraged by successful communication strategy.
Yep.
And then the cycle starts all over again.
That's right.
So we see this cycle that continuously happens, this vicious cycle of, it can be as fake as the news possibly can be, but once it starts in the cycle, and you're trusting the source, which is a literal terrorist organization, to be the ones to relay and play telephone, it goes to the United Nations, it spreads, and then even when they try to walk it back, nobody cares about the truth. Okay, so when we talk about the UN spreading lies, I want to show you a specific example. Do we have that? Yes. So this is an example of how the UN spreads a lie and the media amplifies it. So can we zoom in on that really quick? So you have the UN. So Middle East Eye, they made this just like a day or two ago. They put out a statement, 14,000 babies could die in Gaza within 48 hours without aid. The Guardian, first thing, UN says 14,000 babies could die in Gaza in the next 48 hours under Israeli aid barricade. The claim was false, but almost no one corrected it. The truth never got the same reach, though, as a lie. I believe it's a stat that the truth is 7 times slower than a lie, and I really would dare to say it's much slower than that, because then you scroll down a little bit and you see the real truth starts to come out. You see the United Nations retracts aid chief's claim that 14,000 Gazan babies will die in 48 hours without aid. Then you have Business Times. UN walks back claim that 14,000 Gazan babies face death in 48 hours, citing misinterpretation. Oh, what a surprise. What a surprise. This blood libel has deadly consequences.
Okay. Now, I have made my feelings about the UN abundantly clear. All right. I don't know what is taking so long. In my opinion, the entire United Nations is a useless anti-Semitic organization that has been captured by certain groups. The United Nations needs to leave the United States. I don't know why we host that group of parasites in this country. They all have diplomatic status. Hello, Karma. They all have diplomatic status, which means that they can get off scot-free from their parking fines and all of that. It means that they can rip off the local landlords and not pay and not end up in court. It means that they get a lot of goodies legally, a lot of benefits if they work for the United Nations. Why are they in New York City? Why are they on American soil? Why? That building is magnificent. If you've ever been in that building, it's incredible. If you've ever watched the movie North by Northwest, you know it's an incredible building. There are so many other uses that that building could be put to. I want, and I have wanted for many years, for the United Nations to be absolutely expelled from the United States. Get rid of it. It's enough. Move it to Oman, move it to Qatar, move it to Islamabad, move it somewhere else, put a fucking minaret on it, and call it a day. Because that is who is in charge of the UN and who is in charge of the messaging at the UN. If you don't like it, don't watch my channel. Let's continue.
Okay, that cannot be emphasized enough. Was there anything under that? I think there was another section, right? Or am I tripping? Can you zoom out of it?
See the Jews were murdered section?
Oh, sorry, I'm tripping. So yes, the Jews were murdered. So when you look at this lie that was spread, this lie that made everybody much more emotional, this lie that made everybody more extreme, then people go and they run with that and then they start taking action. Similar to the way I say, all the rhetoric that was calling President Trump a Nazi, that is the reason, that is a driving reason why there were people trying to murder him. Because that's what happens when you spread these kind of narratives. So when you have this narrative out here claiming that 14,000 babies are about to die in Gaza, even though it was retracted, people don't pay attention to the fact that it's retracted because people allow fear to drive them much more than they will allow the truth to drive them. So then you see Jews are murdered. You see the situation where we just had this couple that was shot and killed in front of the embassy. This is how this works almost every single time. And I'm not saying that Israel is perfect, but the things that they get accused of, even when it is walked back or debunked, people still run with this narrative.
Right.
And it leads to the hatred and the anti-Semitism and all the chaos that we have been continuously seeing. And just a matter of fact, this whole narrative about Israel holding aid, which in my opinion, I think they should be. In my opinion, I
agree.
wish they were holding the aid. I'm not even going to cap to you because what do you mean you're in war with somebody, but you're still giving them aid? Because to me, that's crazy. But that's why y'all don't want me to be their commander in chief because I'm pressing that big red button every time I have a reason to. But you know, the truth is that depending on where you look, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of tons of aid have gone into Gaza since October 7th. Really, it's like, I believe I saw a stat, it was like 20,000 trucks with...
Okay, hang on. This is funny. This is funny because I've been accused of sending out dog whistles to the right and so on. I think that the only reason that I sound this way to anybody, and I know you're kidding, but I've been accused of this before, and I think that the only reason that I sound this way to people is because the Overton window has shifted so much. And the left has become so extreme that if you're in the center or if you are stating opinions that are based on actual facts, then you're immediately written off as right-wing. There's nothing about me that's right-wing that I'm aware of, okay? And there are too many fundamental things with which I disagree with the right-wing. But your point is taken. You know what? I could be called worse. I could be called worse. All right, let's go.
Tons of aid each have gone into Gaza bringing them aid. But what happens is Hamas hijacks it and sells it.
Right.
They either keep it for themselves because the Hamas leaders are very, very rich for a reason, or they just go and they sell this aid that should be going to the Gazan civilians. Okay? So when people talk about freeing Palestine, yes, free Palestine from who? Hamas. Their jihadist leaders are the reasons why they are in the situation that they are in.
Right.
Whether it's them being human hostages, whether it's them not getting aid, whether it's them barely having water in the first place, because need I remind you, prior to October 7th even, Hamas has been taking their water systems and their irrigation systems and turning them into ghetto missiles that don't even work. Yep. I want to say only a third of the missiles that Hamas made actually reached outside of Gaza, so a lot of their missiles land in their own territory. Goofy. That is how ridiculous this all is. then I really want to crack down on the rhetoric in these headlines, because I really want to emphasize that when we talk about this murder, we should be saying this innocent couple that was murdered, because everybody, I keep saying the headline everywhere is talking about how 2 Israeli embassy officials were killed in Washington, D.C. That is intentionally meant to downplay, 1, the severity of the attack.
Right.
And 2, it's trying to take away some of the empathy that people will have, because they're like, oh, Israeli embassy? Because to the average ear, what that sounds like is, to people, that sounds like, oh, you're just some government person in Israel. You're just some government Zionist that's a low down, dirty person. You were probably doing something evil. That's probably why they did this to you. Like, that is the type of mind game that the mainstream media outlets are playing by saying things like this. If you just search about what happened last night, they all keep really emphasizing that they were Israeli embassy officials, to the point that people think that this happened at a government office or at the embassy. No, it did not. The facts of the matter, the truth is that the attack did not happen at the embassy. This happened at a Jewish museum, and they just happened to work at the Israeli embassy.
And you know what? That is a comment that would have not have been made if they had worked at any other embassy in D.C. Let's be realistic. If they had worked at the I don't know, the Nigerian embassy or the embassy of Sierra Leone, nobody would have implied that their killing was deserved or that they had it coming, or they wouldn't have said any kind of nefarious thing, or the Australian embassy. You know, nobody would have said a word about that. It would have been mentioned, but it wouldn't have been a key point of the story, because it isn't, because they weren't targeted because they worked at the embassy. They were targeted because they were at a Jewish event. And the kicker is that the guy who was killed was a devout Christian. He wasn't even Jewish, but he worked at the Israeli embassy, and he was about to marry that lady who was Jewish, a woman who had experienced anti-Semitism in college. I think it was college or high school, in Kansas of all places, where a bunch of people came through and they spray painted swastikas all over the sign of the high school. This poor girl. All right, let's continue.
See what I mean? And if you don't, let me just make that crystal clear. This young couple that was soon to be engaged, just happened to work at the Israeli embassy. And even though that fact should not matter, that is the fact that everybody is leading with, because they want to make this seem more just political. They want to make this seem more normalized. They want to desensitize you to the severity of the situation, and they do so carefully through the rhetoric of their headlines. Pay attention. Always read beyond the headlines and through the lines. Okay? And now I sit here and I just think, what did you think was going to happen? When we look at the cycle that's been going on, when we look at the headlines that were just going everywhere from the UN, claiming this lie that 14,000 Gazan babies were going to die within the next 2 days, what did you think was going to happen? Again, shout out to Noy Lieb. He's an IDF soldier that I'm so excited for you guys to see my interview with him that's dropping on Tuesday. And, you know, he put this video out, and I just want to play this in full.
What the did you think was going to happen?
Ooh,
you said nothing when Kanye praised Hitler.
Right.
You said nothing when to Jews was shouted across the world.
Oh, no. People did say something when Kanye lost his mind a few years ago, when he first started showing signs of that. When I pointed this out, I was told to go fuck myself. So people did say something when I said, where is everybody? You know, Kanye made statements that inspired a bunch of neo-Nazis to drape anti-Semitic, hateful signs and banners over the 405 freeway in California. And I said, where is everybody? You know, doesn't anybody have anything to say about this? Nobody's going to come and criticize Kanye. And I was told to go fuck myself. So yes, people had something to say. Absolutely. Yep. Let's go.
You said nothing when Jewish students were locked in libraries. You said nothing when synagogues were vandalized across the world. You said nothing when hostage posters were ripped down day after day after day.
Yep.
And you said nothing when From the River to the Sea became an anthem. The world watched, it joined in, and now a Jewish couple was murdered in the name of Free Palestine. Free Palestine! Since October 7th, Jew hatred isn't extreme. It's something that we unfortunately see every single day. This isn't about Gaza. It's about Jews everywhere. So no, you don't get to act shocked. Not after all this.
I agree.
And this is why we have Israel, because we will not rely on you to protect us. Even you, the leftist Free Palestine Jews, you aren't safe either. Wake the f up.
No, the capo leftist Jews, the capos who were marching with these scumbags, the ones who, wearing the keffiyehs with the blue hair and everything. I have news for you, friends. You're going to end up on the same cattle car as me, if it comes to that. Do you think that you're going to be spared if those people ever take power in any meaningful way, and we get to that point? Do you think that they're going to spare you of going to a camp or being gunned down like a dog in the street? No. No. Me with my opinions and you with your opinions thinking you're making all these allies? No. Some of you need to study what happened right before the Iranian Revolution. And you need to see what happened to the trade unionists and the leftists who joined hands with the mullahs. When the mullahs took power, guess who the first groups of people were that they executed and incarcerated? Yep. People like you capos who are marching on those campuses now with these Islamist and these insane, unhinged so-called activists. So keep that in mind. Don't say nobody warned you.
Too accurate. Shout out to Noy. He makes incredible content. Again, he's originally from Canada. He lives over in Israel. He's an IDF soldier actively, and he makes a lot of content really getting into the tea about the war. And he does these Q&As in a story that I love where he does not hold back. You can ask the guy anything. He's ready. Noyleyb. Go find him in his videos. So he brings up a very important question. What did you think was going to happen? Okay, how can we continue to pretend to be shocked when this has been the norm for far too long? Especially since October 7th. The anti-Semitism started before October 7th.
Oh, way before.
And if you guys remember, if you guys have heard my backstory, and if you haven't, please look up my video 100 Days After October 7th or my article in the Jewish Journal where I go in full depth and detail about why I'm so passionate about this issue. And, the original background of it is I went to Israel in June of 2023, so before October 7th, and I got so much hatred just for being there.
Yep.
Like, not from anybody in Israel for sure, but from the anti-Semites on the internet. And that's when I learned how much of a real thing anti-Semitism still is. So post October 7th, you can imagine how much worse things got.
Yep.
So I want to give you guys just some stats. Shout out to the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. I want to give you guys a breakdown just so you understand just how severe this has gotten since October 7th. So the ADL has reported that over 10,000 anti-Semitic incidents from October 7th, 2023 to September 2024. That's marking a 200% increase compared to the same period in the prior year.
There you go.
Okay, a 200% increase in anti-Semitic incidents is crazy. This is the highest annual total since the ADL began tracking in 1979. In 2023 alone, the ADL recorded 8,873 anti-Semitic incidents, a 140% increase from the almost 3,700 incidents in 2022. Of these, over 6,500 were harassment cases, 1,840 were involved in vandalism, and 152 were physical assaults. Over 5,200 incidents occurred right after October 7th. So that, again, just paints the picture for you of how drastic these incidents have been since October 7th.
When are we going to get to the bottom of who is funding those campus protests? When are we going to find out who bought all those signs, who bought all those identical tents, who bought all of the stuff that those Antifa and others needed, those protesters needed, in order to stay dry and have a place to sleep and make a big display on college grounds? When are we going to find out who bankrolled it? I want to know. And don't give me the shit about George Soros. I want to know who actually put up all the money. I know I have some guesses. I'd say it's Qatar. Qatar has been throwing money at the right-wing community, at the commentators, the big ones. And they've also been throwing money around, donating enormous amounts of money at the universities. And it shows. It shows in the hiring of faculty, in the messages that are conveyed on campus. But I want to know who bought all those tents and all those banners. I want to know. I still don't know. Why don't we know? Let's continue.
Then you have college campuses where there was a massive rise in anti-Semitism, with 922 anti-Semitic incidents reported in just 2023 compared to the 200 in the prior year. Mm-hmm. And again, mind you, October 7th is clearly in October. So you can assume majority of those happened within just a couple months span.
Right.
The ADL also noted that 1,352 anti-Israel rallies with anti-Semitic or anti-Zionist rhetoric post-October 7th have happened. A 2024 American Jewish Committee, AJC, shout out to AJC, they did a survey that found that 77 87% of American Jews felt less safe after October 7th attacks, with 90% reporting increased anti-Semitism and about 35% of Jewish college students experiencing anti-Semitism on campus.
You know, Jews feel so unsafe. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tablet magazine. It's a Jewish magazine. It's very gentle, Tablet. Very gentle. It's not an inflammatory, revolutionary magazine. Very, very sweet magazine. They publish articles like explaining why Jews like to eat at Chinese restaurants on Christmas Day. I made a video about it on my old channel. That gives you an idea of the kind of stuff that Tablet publishes. I think it was in 2023 that Tablet published an article saying that every Jew in the United States needs to buy a weapon, a gun specifically. So that'll give you an idea of how bad things have gotten when even Tablet will publish an article encouraging Jews to arm themselves because things have gotten so bad and so out of control in the United States.
48% felt unsafe at campus due to their Jewish identity. So again, I really want you guys to see it. Oh, and one more for you guys. FBI data shows that anti-Semitic hate crimes rose 36% from 2021 to 2022. And with 2023 seeing even further increases, particularly in cities like New York City and in Los Angeles and in LA, there's a 48% rise. That is insane.
Yep.
So this shows you, these numbers show to you that not only has it been happening, but it's continuously getting worse. And I want to say too, let me address this as straight up as possible. I have had a lot of people try to say to me that anti-Semitism is the new BLM. Now, what some people are trying to say is, okay, because there's a demographic that's being attacked and there's like a call for people to be like, let's stand up and say something about this. They're trying to equate it to BLM. There's a massive difference between what happened with BLM and combating anti-Semitism. Okay, and take this as somebody who used to be a fool supporting BLM before I really started looking for the truth and doing research and looking at things objectively. There is a night and day difference between BLM and fighting anti-Semitism.
No way.
Okay, so there is so with this constant narrative of fighting anti-Semitism being the new BLM, let's break it down. BLM was a fraudulent organization that was fueled by a movement of racial division that was largely led by progressive politicians for political gain and by making up statistics and wrongly convincing Black people that we were being hunted down by the police. Okay.
Okay, and if you want, for fuck's sake, I mean, I can only do so much. Hi, Astro. How you doing? Listen, I have said multiple times that Roland Fryer, the Harvard professor, is one of my big heroes. Okay, if you want to know more about police shootings and police, stop and frisks and all of that kind of stuff, the actual numbers, okay, not the cooked books, not the bullshit, but if you want to know the actual statistics and the numbers and the breakdown, go take a look at Roland Fryer's research at Harvard University. He broke it down. And he was nearly destroyed by Harvard, by Claudine Gay, who was then a dean. She wasn't the president of the university yet. But they nearly destroyed his career over his findings. The numbers don't lie. So, and if you don't want to read his study, fair enough, very few people do want to read academic papers, and I don't blame you. Roland Fryer is all over YouTube. He has given so many talks. He has been interviewed so many times. He's done so many shorts that there is no excuse not to be able to take a look at Roland Fryer's research. And you will see how empty and how, I mean, it's a lie. BLM was propagating a lie. And in that, they're very similar to the radical transgender movement, using cooked statistics and polls and so on, in order to achieve an end that was very, very harmful and damaging. And I am glad to report, I am very, very glad to report that the new mayor of San Francisco is not playing games. It seems like he's going to be a good leader of that city. He's a Levi Strauss heir, and he wants to bring business back to San Francisco. And he wants to improve security, law enforcement, protection of San Francisco citizens. So that is a bit of good news. He's undoing the damage that groups like BLM did with their defund the police horseshit. So let's continue.
Okay, they would manipulate stats, they would lie straight to our faces and make it seem like there was this epidemic of black people dying at the hands of the police. Just to find out that as an unarmed black man in America, I'm more likely to be struck by lightning and die from that than to be shot and killed by the police. Okay, that's a fact for you.
Yep.
Meanwhile, anti-Semitism is objectively out of control. We just saw it last night. Murdering an innocent young couple and then screaming free Palestine, you can't look around that. That is a straight up hate crime, objectively speaking. Okay, you have college students who are being barred from classes. I'm an eyewitness of that.
Yep.
I went and I broke into the UCLA encampments and did research and had a whole moment with that with Cam Higbee. And Jews are being murdered left and right, it seems like. Yet instead of it all being condemned, you have the mainstream media outlets and the elected officials who are supporting this hatred. BLM was fighting this invisible boogeyman.
Right.
The Jews are fighting for their right to exist in 2025.
Amazing.
If anything is the new BLM, really, I shouldn't even say new, which is BLM rebranded and more extreme and less researched. It's Free Palestine.
Yeah.
Free Palestine and BLM, they are as thick as thieves. And it is clearly written out in their Marxist ideology. And a lot of people didn't even know where Palestine was on a map. I mean, it isn't on a map for good reason.
Yeah, BLM was a virulently anti-Semitic organization. And they do include Palestine in their founding documents, if you will. So, yeah, they are. They are completely. They're like Siamese twins. They're like the twin children, or they're like the two children, twins by different mothers, or whatever it is, or different fathers. I don't know what the expression is. I can't remember. But yeah, they're both violent. They both spread lies. They're both overfunded by God only knows whom. Although BLM decided to become more organized, and they just stole the money. They stole the money to buy luxury homes here, there, and everywhere. But BLM did nothing but create division, raise Cain, create havoc, steal money, and frighten people. So fuck BLM. Let's go.
But a lot of y'all didn't even know what Palestine was until October 7th and post-October 7th. But BLM has been saying Free Palestine for years. They have always been connected. There was never a degree of separation there. The intensity of the hatred towards Jews is a very real objective thing.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have that video that Cam Higbee posted? Did I get that to you guys in time?
Don't scroll information. Last night, a 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez shot and killed two.
Because I played it last night on
shout
my
out to
stream.
Cam, even though he still owes me money from Catch LA, but we'll talk about that on another day. But on a serious note, like that paints the picture for you right there to show the intensity of these anti-Semitic people. Obviously, there are intensely racist people out there. There are people out there who hate every demographic. There are supremacists of every degree and like against every demographic. But when it comes to anti-Semitism, it is so urgent and it is so targeted and it is being played out in a way that other demographics are not seeing. And when it comes,
and you know what? The sad thing is, it crosses all political ideologies. It crosses all racial groups. It is like there's a rainbow coalition of anti-Semites. It's the one thing that they can agree on. They may all hate each other, but they hate Jews more. So if you listen to the talk on the far right and the far left, it is indistinguishable. They sound exactly the same. Exactly the same. Different justifications, but the language is exactly the same.
Comes to BLM, it's like maybe I could have respected BLM a little bit more as a movement if they actually talked about Black Lives Mattering in general, but no, they tried to paint this false narrative that the people who were actually protecting Black people were the real villains there, the real culprits there. That is not the case, okay? BLM needs to matter. My biggest threat as a Black person is other Black people, if we're just talking stats here, okay? Oh, excuse me. But when it comes to what Jewish people are dealing with on a global level, anti-Semitism really is that deep.
Yep.
It really is that intense. That is the difference. So stop making that comparison. And I don't know if other people have heard that narrative. You know, I'm deep in these circles, so I hear these things a lot. And it's very frustrating to me that people do not see the difference there. So again, great work there by Cam Higbee. And, you know, I want to talk about universities, especially in the way that universities are normalizing all of this. You know, I believe we have a clip here just as a reminder of what college campuses have looked like recently when it comes to anti-Semitism.
Showing you video from 1 year ago. It was in the overnight hours here outside of Royce Hall when pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli demonstrators had violent clashes. Those clashes would lead into the next night in the overnight hours of May 2nd and the breakdown and the teardown of what had become a large pro-Palestinian encampment just outside of Royce Hall, something that NBC4 covered extensively and live throughout those overnight hours.
Yeah, so I believe when I was at UCLA with Cam, it was right before that. And I think that's also around the same time that Cam was there and got bear maced. That's how violent these Free Palestine people are. So this is a college campus, mind you.
Right.
Like the fact, like this isn't just like out in these streets. This isn't some local hood. This is a college campus. This is UCLA. People fight very hard to get into UCLA. So for this to be at a more prestigious, high-end university, that is terrifying.
Yeah, well, let's face facts. A lot of the people at UCLA, a lot of people on the campus were not students. They were Antifa. There were signs that gang members were showing up, putting on keffiyehs to jump into the fray. And they, knowing that the police would be very slow to show up. I, for one, don't understand why Antifa hasn't been designated as, officially designated as a terror group. I don't know what's taking the government so long. But, and let me say something else. There's that guy, Leo Terrell, who is running that anti-Semitism task force at the Justice Department. He talks a big game. What the fuck is he doing, though? I know he tweets a lot. And he constantly puts out these tweets, either video tweets or written tweets saying, oh, we're here for you. We're here to help you. We're going to defeat this and blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, thanks a lot. But this is all you seem to do all day is fucking tweet. What are you doing? If it's not too much to ask, could you please give me an example of what it is that you are actually doing? I mean, going after Harvard is fun and all, but the thing is, it's not just a Harvard problem, and it's not just an Ivy League problem. It is a nationwide problem. So what the hell are you doing about it? I don't know. I'm impatient. I know Trump has been in office for like 5 minutes, but I want to know what this guy is doing. He tweets so much that I don't know how he has time to do anything else, but let's continue.
But it really goes to show what the culture is like on these campuses. And since October of 2023, U.S. universities have seen a 321% increase in anti-Semitic incidents, with Jewish students reporting harassment, these chants from river to the sea, which is literally talking about eradicating their entire people, and very direct threats. Okay, Jewish students over at Columbia University have been facing these chants like, go back to Europe. And with Rutgers students being threatened for holding Israeli flags. I just saw a video from Santa Monica. I wish I got it to you, Mr. Rodriguez. This video I just saw the other day on TikTok of these kids just walking down in Santa Monica, and there's people running up to them, screaming at them because they're wearing a Star of David. Okay, this is the reality of what's going on here.
Yep.
And these universities really need to be held accountable because, one, they're accepting way too much money from Qatar.
Yeah, I said so. Yes.
Which not everybody's ready for that conversation. Way too much money from these foreign influences.
Yep.
that is promoting this extremist rhetoric against the Jewish community. And then you have faculty staff with professors, especially at Columbia, like Joseph Massad, who have been accused. Receipts show that they have been, but let's say allegedly, they've been promoting these anti-Israel narratives that equate Zionism with colonialism, which is so bizarre considering Zionists, like, they literally were there first, but y'all ain't ready for that kind of tea. But my audiences, my cousins are, but the general public, they're afraid to have the conversation about the truth and the reality of Israel, which is not like any other land in this world. Like, that is literally the most sacred place in the world. And, potentially, you could tie a lot of what happened at Columbia directly to this faculty member, Joseph Massad, and the way that he has such an anti-Semitic attitude that he promotes throughout the campus.
Yeah.
So you have these university administrators who have really fostered this intersectional hierarchy that...
Who bought those matching tents? Who bought those tents? Who? I know a lot of people have raised this question, and it hasn't been answered to anybody's satisfaction. But I want to know who is bankrolling these encampments and these protests. I need to know.
Prioritizes certain groups all over the Jewish community, allowing the anti-Semitic rhetoric to truly flourish. It is out of control, and enough is enough. The universities have blood on their hands, and the biased media has blood on their hands, and really, these Congress people who are not taking action have blood on their hands, okay? I'm not talking to go and censor every single person who has a criticism against Israel or a criticism against the Jewish community. And I just find it funny how that's even a narrative, this whole narrative that you're not allowed to criticize Israel or Jews. If that was the case, then explain 88% of the internet at this point.
Right.
Explain what's happening on these college campuses. If you weren't allowed to criticize these demographics, then why is it such a widespread narrative? I mean, look at this. Look at this. The obsession of hatred towards Israel and the Jewish community is wild to me. I also want to show you this clip from Charlie Kirk when he's sitting down with one of these kids who desperately needs to be woken up. This is how these college students are being indoctrinated.
There is no justification for the murder and mutilation of thousands of innocent people and children. Well, it's a futile... There is no justification, Mr. Kerr, for invading hospitals, for bombing innocent populations and dragging out a war which is damaging Israel and the West.
You've made that point, but...
Well, it's not a point, it's a moral truth, isn't it?
Yeah. It was also a moral truth that the war started because 1,300 Jews were killed and 200 were taken hostage. And when you declare war on Israel, expect a firestorm in reaction. Let me finish, I let you talk. Israel, at its holiest day of the calendar year besides Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, the 50-year anniversary of the Six-Day War. On Shabbat, Hamas invaded Israel, deciding to go recklessly to music concerts, to homes, to kibbutzes, and taking 200-plus hostages. They knew what they were doing. In one of the most cloistered urban environments on the planet, 2 million people live in a place where it's impossible to wage war. Impossible. Where they wear civilian clothing, they violate every tenet of the Geneva Convention, and the IDF, when they do something right, they get no credit. When they do life-saving surgeries of a Gazan child, they get no credit. When they drop leaflets, they get no credit. But when they happen to bomb a place where they are operating their military from, which we now know from third-party verified sources, hundreds of Hamas military operations are in mosques, schools, and hospitals. I'm sorry, the country where they were living in relative peace on October 6th, that all of a sudden we had a war, and Hamas started the war. And I don't see people that were really upset about the 2 million Germans that were killed in World War II, civilians. A tragic truth of war is that civilians die. I don't like it, and you don't like it. And they brought it upon themselves. The only operation and entity to blame is the leadership of Hamas, not the Israeli government, for fighting this defensive war after they were invaded. There is a good guy, and there is a bad guy. I honestly...
Not the morality of a child.
Well, hold on.
That's all you have to say.
It's interesting you say that, because a child who knows that Israel is the good guy, Hamas is bad, has a lot more wisdom than a student like yourself at Cambridge University.
Oh, and that's how you clear an anti-Semite. I don't know who that child is, but he learned today, hopefully. These kids need to be woken up. They need to be reminded the truth. I mean, a lot of these kids literally just have not heard the truth. And it's really scary that the higher you see these kids being educated, the more they're indoctrinated about, transgenderism and radical intifada and all these different things. These kids need to be reminded that the place without women's rights, without LGBT rights, without, black people being allowed to have any peace of mind, and the furthest place from DEI, it's going to be the Palestinian region.
Right.
Okay. They need to understand that as they scream intifada, they support these jihadi leaders. It is the antithesis of every progressive ideology that it is that they have. It will never make sense to me how these people think that they are fighting for civil rights and for peace while simultaneously supporting Hamas.
He is absolutely correct. Thank you. Thank you so much, Xavier. He's wonderful. He's such a... Now there's a breath of fresh air. That's a breath of fresh air. All right. I am going to close out with this insane segment from the British news. I'm blown away by this. You guys are going to love this. I promise. All right. Let me bring this up. All right. And I love the name of this segment because, like you guys know, I am an English lit nerd. The name of the segment, are you guys ready for it? Prejudice at Pride. How absolutely amazing is that? Prejudice at Pride. You win. You win all of it. Okay? Whoever the intern or the producer was who thought up that segment title. Amazing. All right. And this is from GB News. Let me just deal with the volume here. All right. Are you guys ready for this? This is about gay pride, and you are going to be blown away. Let's go. Oh, hang on. I'm an idiot. I didn't share the screen. Here we go. Let's try this again. All All right, let's go.
Organisers from Stroud Pride, which has received national lottery funding, called for performers to take part in its annual celebration, but told volunteers that it would not accept LGB views. They appear to be referencing those members of the lesbian, gay and bisexual community who are critical of transgender and queer rights being under the same banner as gay rights.
Okay, would you people please take a look at that chyron? Stroud Pride event said it would not allow volunteers with LGB views at Pride. So you're not going to allow volunteers who have views supporting lesbians, gays, and bisexuals at Pride.
Talk this through, I am delighted to welcome back Andrew Doyle.
Hello.
This is weird.
It is weird, I know.
Andrew, there you are.
Yeah, here I am. How are you, Josh?
I'm good, mate. Thank you very much. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
It's lovely.
It's exciting to be here.
It is. Well, it's exciting to have you back. It's great. It's just a weird flippage of seating.
Yeah, because I never sat in this seat.
Yeah. What is it life like? Is it better?
It's quite a nice seat. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's fine.
Fine, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Well, let's talk about the story, because it's mental.
Yes.
As that's what the show that you created covers.
Yeah.
Did you read about it in the newspapers? It was
well, that was
the Telegraph.
Well, the first thing was it was obviously going online quite a lot, and a lot of gay activists were sharing it because they were very concerned, because obviously Stroud Pride it looked like it was saying it didn't want gay people there.
Right.
Well, that's not quite what it was saying. It was saying it didn't want anyone with LGB views, which has kind of become a shorthand for those who don't believe that the TQ plus should be connected to the LGB. And there's very good reason for that. You know,
Exactly.
LGB is about the rights of people who are same-sex attracted. That's lesbians, gay people, and bisexual people.
And that's an inherent characteristic.
That's an inherent characteristic, absolutely. And then you've got the TQ plus, and the plus could mean absolutely anything, and all of that just means something to do with this vague, nebulous notion of gender identity, and this idea that people are attracted to other people's spirit, in a way, you know, sort of gendered soul. Now, of course, to be gay means that you are attracted to members of your own sex, not your own gender, whatever that means, because no one can define it anyway. So gay rights are predicated on this realization or recognition that there are a minority of people in every population who are attracted to their own sex. The gender identity movement tries to eliminate that and says that's not a thing. And that's why, for instance, there was a recent TV show fronted, I think, by Danny Minogue, where they had which was all about gay men.
I Kissed a Boy.
Yeah, I Kissed a Boy, about gay men hooking up. And they put a woman in there who identifies as male. And in a way, that's kind of like gay conversion therapy. What you're sort of saying is, you should be attracted to this person, even though you are innately not. And I think gay people are kind of sick of it. They're sick of being shamed for their sexual orientation.
Because they would, I guess the accusation would be you're a bigot or you're a transphobe if you weren't to be sexually active with someone of the opposite sex but who identifies as your sex. Which we also, I guess we saw this kind of all started really with lesbians being told that they should sleep with trans women who are essentially biological men who still...
It's always the fucking lesbians, isn't it? How many times have I repeated this? The lesbians are the ones who get it in the neck the most. They were the first ones being targeted by these men in dresses. They continue to be dragged and targeted. Their spaces are violated. They're not allowed to have lesbian-only apps, or, you know, they have men invading the dating apps. They have men invading every aspect of their lives. And then when they refuse to give in, they're told that there's some sort of a bigot. But it's always the lesbians, isn't it? Well, now it's gay men. It's gay men who were invited onto that I Kissed a Boy show. And they brought some girl on who was on T with a mustache and everything. And now the gays are like, wait, what the fuck is going on? Gay men, I mean. But yeah, lesbians have been putting up with this shit for well over a decade. And they've been very, very tired of it.
They'll have all of their bits and were attracted to women.
Yeah, and not only that, but shaming them for it. I mean, there's all sorts of lesbian dating apps now with a lot of men on those apps. who identify as female. But we're talking about people with beards, fully intact, you know, like proper hulking men.
Sounds like a joke, but it's crazy. The examples online.
It's all over the place.
I mean, cotton ceiling, is that one of the terms that was
cotton
used?
ceiling is the notion that there's a kind of barrier that trans-identified people have to face in order to get into the pants of women. That's hence you get the cotton ceiling, it's a variation of the glass ceiling, right? Now that's quite disturbing.
Yeah.
Because what they're saying is we have to find a way to coerce lesbians, women who are attracted to other women, to be attracted to us.
Yeah, and boy, oh boy, if this is not an age-old straight male fantasy, right? Being able to bang a lesbian and convert her, you know, oh, she just hasn't had the right, you know, dick. I've heard men, you know, guys that were friends of mine many, many years ago, you know, say that. Oh, well, that's why they're gay. You know, when they were drunk or something. Oh, well, yeah, she's gay, but she just hasn't had the right one. So this is a straight male fantasy. This is not about, oh, I put on a dress as a man and I put on the lashes and the makeup and everything, and I'm so feminine and I have a feminine, you know, like a typical feminine name like Tiffany or Crystal or something. That's what I call myself. And so I'm female. So naturally, I should date these women. It is all a ruse. It's a ruse. Because again, you could not come up with a more cliched straight male fantasy than trying to switch a lesbian to the other team. It's crazy. Let's go.
You get the same thing with gay men. Now, on Grindr, friends, Grindr is a gay hookup app. I'm explaining because I know you won't know what that is, right?
Mate, but I've got 1,000 followers on it.
Yeah, you do, actually. It's the app where you can pinpoint another gay man to the nearest foot using satellite technology. It's actually very weird if you think about it for more than a moment. But that app now, because it's always allowed you to filter out according to various tastes, you know, height, age, whatever it might be. But it doesn't allow you, if you're a gay man, to filter out women who identify as men. And on the website, Grindr actually says, we're not going to do this because trans women are women, and it would be bigoted. In other words, Grindr, a gay hookup app that has made a fortune off gay men's sex drive, is now shaming gay men for being gay. Now, this sounds like the stuff of fiction. This sounds like it's absolutely insane. But it's going on all over the place. I mean, I mentioned this I Kissed a Boy show with Danny Minogue. Danny Minogue, by the way, who said that she identified as queer.
Whatever that means.
And then someone called her out on it and said, well, aren't you in a straight relation? And she said, yeah, no, I only sleep with men. I just think I'm queer, right?
You know, this word queer, first of all, it's a slur. I will never hear that word related to the gay community and not think of it as a slur and not immediately associate the word queer with violence. I don't care if you think you've appropriated it, it doesn't matter. Queer is almost exclusively used by straight people who are very dull and lead very conventional, boring, straight lives to describe themselves. It means nothing. It means I'm straight, I'm not terribly interesting, but I identify as this. No. I remember when Petty Page came out as queer. This is a married woman with 2 children, but she wants us to believe, oh, but I'm really queer. Queer in what way? You're straight. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you. You're not that interesting. And even if you were queer, whatever the fuck that means, it still wouldn't matter. It still wouldn't matter. You know, just make your videos, throw your shade, and stop identifying as something that you're not unless you can define it. Unless you can define it. Cut it out. And unless you can come up with a really, really good argument for why it is that older people who hear the word queer and associate it with violence shouldn't be offended. Because the younger generation told the older generation, you know, the ones, the gay men who were kicked in the head with steel-toed boots, nearly killed, nearly beaten to death while being called queer, they were being told, these gay men, well, why don't you shut the fuck up, Grandpa? Now this is our word. No, it's a slur. It's a slur. And the fact that it's been appropriated mostly by straight people is so cringe. I don't even have the fucking words. Let's go.
What are you talking about?
Isn't that what the whole point of queer, the Q and the plus is, as various people have said, it's so straight people with having their hair dyed pink.
It's straight people with a fetishistic martyr complex.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's straight people trying to identify into an oppressed class.
Right.
So what you have is, I mean, there was that survey in America of young Christians, actually, between the ages of something like 18 and 25. Something like 40% were identifying as LGBTQ+. Statistically speaking, that means that the majority of people who are now identifying within that LGBTQ+ bracket are straight.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what that means is that Pride, in its current manifestation, is a predominantly straight festival.
Yep. And I have said this before, too, that the straights ruined fucking Pride. All these straight people with the blue hair and the nose rings and the septum piercings and all that shit have ruined Pride. You know, the ones who consider themselves to be allies who have now basically overtaken Pride have ruined it. And the fetishists have ruined Pride. You know, and these straight people who are pushing for this transgender shit, because a lot of these men in dresses are heterosexual. They have ruined Pride. And we're going to hear a little later on in this segment the damage that has been done as a result of this.
Heterosexual festival, right? To the extent that there are now lesbians and gay men who are setting up their own alternative prides.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's very complicated. The reason why Stroud Pride doesn't really want people who are gay or espouse gay rights there, remembering, by the way, that the TQ plus element represented by that Progress Pride flag, not the rainbow flag.
The one with the arrow.
The one with the arrow and the circle and all the other junk just thrown onto it. That eyesore now represents a movement that wants to castrate and sterilize gay youth,
right,
that wants to fix and heterosexualize and normalize that gay youth, like the mullahs in Tehran do, right? So in other words, when you fly that flag...
Thank you so much, Andrew Doyle, for making the connection between what happens in Iran with the forced surgeries, turning men into what passes for a woman. And there, the choice is, well, either we kill you, or your family kills you, or you go under the knife and we turn you into the woman that we think you are, because no man would desire to sleep with another man. So we're going to turn you into a woman, and that'll be normal. It is the most extreme form of conversion therapy. But when it's done here, it's considered to be a kindness, or when it's done in the West. And when it's done to really young people, we're doing them a favor. No. Please tell me what percentage of those kids are being coerced by their parents. Or, God forbid, how many parents are being lied to by medical professionals. It's very, very sobering.
When people see that flag, a lot of gay people see that flag and they think, that means gay people aren't welcome here. That means that Pride is now a homophobic festival. Pride itself is homophobic. If you don't believe me, look on the account of Fred Sargent, who was one of the four individuals who set up the first ever Pride March in 1970. It was called the Christopher Street Liberation Day March then, became Pride. He's now said that Pride is homophobic. Gay people have to reject Pride. We have to turn our backs on Pride. There's a real problem with that because the corporate world doesn't understand that. A lot of gay rights activist groups don't understand that. But anyone, any business, school, NHS, hospital, company, whatever you are, if you're flying that Progress Pride flag, you need to know that you're flying a divisive symbol, which is really anti-gay, essentially.
That's right. And I wanted to remind everybody, I had the great honor of interviewing Fred Sargent, the founder of Pride, who was actually at Stonewall and has spent a great deal of his life since this whole transgender movement thing started rewriting gay history and everything, correcting the record on what actually happened at Stonewall, and correcting the record on Marsha P. Johnson, who was not transgender. Marsha P. Johnson was a drag queen who identified as a man, and saying, no, it was not the transgenders or whatever that threw the first brick at Stonewall. That is false. And this matters because rewriting history it leads to a disaster. We need to know what actually happened in history. So let me share my interview with Fred Sargent. It's right there. I did it years ago on my old channel, and I uploaded it to Rumble, and then I re-uploaded it to YouTube. And I was very, very moved to talk to Fred Sargent. It was literally a great honor for me to talk to him. So by all means, check out my interview with Fred Sargent. Let's continue.
And a lot of gay people feel that way. And a lot of women feel that it's against women's rights as well. Right? So it is a divisive symbol. It shouldn't be flown by public bodies, for instance. It shouldn't be all over Regent Street in the way that it is annually every year. It is time for gay people to say, no, Pride does not represent us.
Yeah.
In Cardiff, lesbians were kicked out of Pride because they were carrying banners saying lesbians don't like penises.
Imagine, okay, what did I just say? What did I just say? Why is it always the lesbians? Why? I've been watching this unfold for years now. I've seen what's been done to Julie Bindel and Kathleen Stock and other gay women. And the way that gay women, I mean, I'll never forget the cringe, the sight of what amounted to a Maoist struggle session with young lesbian women who made it clear that they were not interested in men. And that's why they were lesbians, obviously. And they had been pressured so much by this transgender lobby and told that they were bigots and called names and all this. And when you're young, you know, you can't withstand those insults. You don't have the stamina, the mental energy. You don't want to be a bad person. You want to be an ally. You want to be accepting. And the way that these young lesbians were begging for forgiveness and saying that they weren't going to discriminate against trans women anymore. And it really was like something out of the Cultural Revolution in China. It was unbelievable. Lesbians don't like penises and you're kicked out of fucking Pride? Listen, I've been hearing bitching and moaning about Pride from my gay friends, which means that they're my age, like in my age range. I've been hearing it for years, that they feel completely alienated from Pride, that it's too heterosexual, that there are too many weirdos that show up. Somebody mentioned the furries, you know, men dressed like dogs, the whole thing. And they're like, no, this is not Pride. This is not Pride. I've got a whole other contingent of gay male friends who say that once Pride became more family friendly and people started bringing kids, that it lost its transgressive feel to it, and that it was always supposed to be underground and you know, more not in your face, but more dangerous. There was supposed to be an element of danger to Pride. And that doesn't exist anymore, that it had been cleaned up, but at the same time, it became more perverse. It's very, very weird. But that a lot of my gay friends have not attended Pride in years. And I tell all of them, well, if you are really that disgruntled with Pride in the West, you need to go to Pride in Tel Aviv because it's the real deal. Let's go.
Well, you know what? They don't. They don't, because they're lesbians.
Not in the videos I've seen.
Yeah, but you have very niche tastes, don't you, Josh? But it's a real problem, the shaming of gay people. I mean, gay rights is really going backwards, hurtling backwards, I should say. The other problem, of course, is because of all the TQ plus craziness, you know, with sort of people in fetish gear twerking in front of children at Pride events, you know, that kind of thing. And because they've lumped it all together as LGBTQ plus, a lot of people think it's gay people's fault. And they've started saying, well, we shouldn't have let them have gay marriage. We shouldn't have allowed them all these rights because look what's happening now. Not realizing that the people doing that kind of thing are anti-gay themselves. They're against the notion of gay rights because they don't think homosexuality exists. Right, so it's a real problem. And in fact, in America, there are now, I think, up to 5 states trying to repeal same-sex marriage in America. Support for gay people and gay rights has gone down in America quite considerably.
You know, a lot of people, oh, this is a bad pause face.
All of the...
Oh, slightly better. A lot of people tried to warn the gay community. They tried to warn Stonewall. They tried to warn the Human Rights Campaign and other gay rights organizations and said, if you do not separate yourselves from this, meaning the transgenders, the heterosexuals who are trying to take over Pride, blah, 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 it is going to have an extremely bad impact on the gay community. And that is exactly what has happened. Nothing is more disappointing to me and depressing to me personally than to see this erosion of support for the gay community around the country. It's been devastating to see. But, you know, I have to say a lot of that is the fault of the so-called gay rights organizations that threw their lot in after gay marriage was legalized in the United States by the decision of the Supreme Court. Now all these gay rights organizations are like, well, how the hell are we supposed to raise money now? You know, we were working towards this end and we achieved it. Now what do? Oh, I know. We're going to latch on to these straight men in dresses and we're going to make them the cause. And a lot of people said the longer that you continue to advocate for this particular group of people, the more it's going to hurt the gay community. And this is exactly what we're seeing now. Now, my impression has always been that the basis for legalizing gay marriage across the country was that the brilliant lawyers, David Boies and Ted Olson, who argued the case in front of the Supreme Court, used the case of Loving versus Virginia as a precedent. And I thought, well, that's very solid legal ground. But you never know what could happen. You never know. You know? I mean, there arose a new pharaoh in Egypt who knew not Joseph, right? We all remember that story. You have to be careful. And it's very worrying. It's very worrying that these efforts are being made in different states to pull back on gay marriage. I hate every second of this. I hate it. Gay marriage has only been legal for a relatively short period of time. And it is way too early for this to be happening. But again, these gay organizations have no one but themselves to blame.
This is happening because of this. You have gay people being shamed for being gay. I mentioned the Danny Minogue show, but there was also that First Dates show on TV. I don't know if you saw that, where there was a young gay man. He'd just come out. He'd always been uncomfortable with his sexuality. He'd just come out, and they set him up on a blind date, and he was very excited, and they set him up with a woman.
Right.
They set him up with a girl who identifies as male. So this young boy who had just come to terms with his sexuality, not an easy thing to do at that age, was effectively being subjected to conversion therapy on live TV.
Imagine.
And because of the stigma about saying anything about it, he had to go along with it. Now,
conversion therapy on live TV, huh? Well, what do you think of Jazz Jennings? What do you think of TLC and Jazz's parents profiting off of a reality show that showed or that tracked a young child getting genital mutilation on reality TV? What are we to make of that? We are as a society unmoored by so many things. Let's continue.
If you think about that for one moment, if you think about the kind of psychological trauma that could cause, the kind of aggressive anti-gay quality of that, it's hugely disturbing.
Yeah.
And the irony, I guess, being that the producers in that case thought they were being progressive.
Right.
Or being kind or
and
inclusive.
I think Stroud Pride think they're being progressive and kind and inclusive. I think by this, I mean, what they're doing might not be legal as it happens, because they're effectively saying people with gender critical views are not allowed, but that's against the law because gender critical views are protected in the Equality Act. So there might be on dodgy legal ground. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to say definitively.
But I have read similar things. LGB Alliance, I believe, who have consulted lawyers, are looking into it.
And they're right to, because this is it's very, very well, at the very least, even if it might be well intentioned, Stroud Pride should listen to what gay people are saying and try and understand. I mean, part of the problem we have is that homophobia, which is a word that is often thrown about, without much thought, but actually it does exist, and it always exists, and I think it always will exist, and I think it'll exist everywhere. Gay people at the moment are facing a pushback from trans rights activists. A lot of them are homophobic, vehemently so.
Very much so.
They've reintroduced various gay slurs into the lexicon that I won't be able to say here on TV. They talk about how AIDS was a good thing. They really barrage and attack gay people online. So you've got that going on for people who identify on the left. You've got the far right and the usual typical Christian right who is talking about gay people being degenerates and evil. They're attacking them. There's a small, sizable minority of gender-critical feminists who despise gay men and attack them online. I've been dogpiled by gender-critical feminists who just hate gay men. They just go.
Yeah, they do. But that is, listen, I don't think it's a sizable minority. I've run into them on Twitter and I block them because they're insane, these women. But I would say that compared to the other two groups, it's a very, very small number of people. Mostly women, mostly radical feminists, and all of them are insane. So, block them, keep it moving.
go after gay men, right? That, by the way, is the huge minority. Most gender-critical feminists are very pro-gay, and they're as horrified by this behaviour.
Right.
But that minority is a sizable contingent. I've had it over the last few days. Just crazed, psychotic hatred, and they have a real issue with gay men. And so, therefore, gay people are taking it from... They're getting attacked from multiple fronts. It doesn't help when people who claim to be allies to the gay cause, like Stroud...
Well, I would say it's not that they claim to be allies of the gay cause, they claim to be the gay cause.
Well, that's it as well, yeah.
The TQ plus to that cause.
Same with Stonewall. So Stonewall was the foremost gay rights charity of this country. It's named after the Stonewall riots, of course, which was a catalyst to gay rights back in it was 1969. But Stonewall embraced gender identity ideology around 2015. And they've been going down this road, even though it isn't an anti-gay ideology. People don't understand this. They can't grasp that the foremost gay charity has become effectively an anti-gay charity.
Stonewall is terrible. Stonewall needs to be disbanded. It is a disgrace. It's a disgrace to the name. It's a disgrace to the cause. It's a disgrace to the work that they've done in the past. It is now an anti-gay charity, and it has been for quite some time. I remember when their former leader, a lesbian of all people, of all things, I should say, a lesbian told her fellow lesbians that if they were not willing to sleep with transgender women who were men, that they were committing an act of sexual racism. Nancy, what the fuck was her last name? Nancy something, who ran Stonewall. An absolute disgrace. A disgrace. But that's how far down the road of insanity Stonewall went under that woman's leadership.
Because the charity itself doesn't think it is.
Well, they changed the terminology of being gay, right?
They actually altered the website so that homosexual or gay was defined as being attracted to someone of the same gender.
No.
Which it isn't.
Which is gay,
gay, it doesn't mean anything. No one can define the phrase gender identity, not even trans activists themselves.
Right.
They've tried to, but they never can. When I spoke to Robin Moira White on this show, a trans barrister, I said, what's the definition of gender identity? And the answer I got, the essence of male or female.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? A spirit.
Jinx.
You're talking about souls. Now, that's fine. Anyone is free to believe in their own metaphysical worldview. I completely support that. I believe in freedom of belief. But this particular religious worldview has formed the basis of public policy, public health policy and law policy. It's formed the basis of national curricula. It's in hospitals, right? So all of this it's been implemented. And look, when Jackie Smith, who's the spokesperson for equalities for the government in the House of Lords, was asked specifically in the House of Lords, what is the government's working definition of gender identity? She couldn't answer the question.
Wow.
And she even said, she effectively said, this is like a gotcha. Why don't you take this seriously?
They want to put it into law, something they can't define.
They cannot define something that they want to legislate. They want to build it into law. And it's already to a degree in law, isn't it? Right? So we really need to be able to define what that means. We need to be able to identify the threat that gender identity poses to gay rights, because it is an existential threat.
Yeah, it
right?
is.
It completely undermines the root basis of gay rights, which, as I've said, is the notion that some people are attracted to members of their own sex, is being undermined if you say that that does not exist, that biological sex does not exist, but this esoteric notion of a gendered soul must substitute for that, right? So that's a real issue.
So what's happened with the Stroud Pride, then bringing it back to that, is the schism has been revealed. I mean, I think I agree with you. I think most people are certainly like bosses of companies. They don't understand these issues. But when you see something like this, when a pride organisation meant to be advocating for gay rights is basically, in essence, saying gay people or some gay people don't turn up. We don't want to have anything to do with you.
Yeah.
Do you think that shows how the situation is changing, that more homosexuals are realising the homophobia within the TQ plus ideology?
I think, yes. I think part of the problem has been that a lot of people haven't realised it's there. It's been too complicated. Activists have been too successful when it comes to redefining terminology.
Right.
And, of course, a lot of people didn't believe it. Like, if you say to them, you know, there are a lot of men on lesbian dating sites now shaming lesbians who won't go on dates with them. People, that sounds like I've made it up. It sounds like a satirical thing. Yeah. But it's actually happening, right? You know, people think that, you know, even the men in women's prisons thing, no one thought. That went on for so long, and it is still going on. There are still men in women's prisons in this country, in spite of the Supreme Court ruling. because that hasn't had the full knock-on effect yet.
Right.
But when you say that's happening, when you say, well, how can that be? How can a rapist be moved to a female prison where he goes on to commit further sexual assaults that actually happened, by the way, a man who identified as Karen? Right? How can that you tell people that, they think you're making it up. But all of this is happening.
They think you're a bigot.
Right.
Or they think you're a bigot because you're not standing up for the rights of rapists.
Right.
Is that what they mean? Because they really need to think about that, don't they?
Right. You know, a couple of years ago, I said that I was very distressed to see this fourth wave feminist coalition strongly advocating to put these rapists in women's prisons because they claim to be transgender, and, you know, trans women are women through the miracle of some sort of transubstantiation, the woke version of it, and where you can turn water into wine. Well, now you can turn a man into a woman just by making a declaration. And I said, this is not my brand of feminism. I did not become a feminist to defend male rapists. Well, there are no other types of rapists. Men are rapists, by definition, legally and everything else. And I'm talking about this forcible rape. I'm not talking about statutory, okay? So don't bring up the example of school teachers, please. I'm talking about men who prowl around and attack women and rape them. You have to have a penis in order to be a rapist in many jurisdictions. Certainly in the UK you do. And I said, I don't get these young feminists. I don't understand what they're trying to achieve. But I will be goddamned if I am going to be part of a movement, of women's rights movement, that advocates for rapists, male rapists. Absolutely out of the question. All right, let's continue.
They need to think about what are the implications of what they're saying. When Stroud says people with LGB views are not welcome, they might not mean gay people, but the language that they use is most definitely exposing that schism and exposing the dark homophobic heart of the genderist movement.
Yep.
Yeah. I should quickly say part of the reason that you're back here in the is because you have a book out. Now you have an interview next week with Camilla Tominey, I'm a massive fan of, on this very channel, so I don't really want to get into the book, but we can certainly mention it because also you're doing a couple of live events, I think Spiked and also Free Speech Union holding sort of live talks with you. Is that
we're doing, so not this week, but the week after, I'm doing a few live events, one for Unheard, one for Spiked, one for the Free Speech Union, and all of those details are available online on my Twitter.
I've seen him interviewed about this book, and it looks great, and I think I'm going to order it, and I'm going to read it. It looks fantastic.
So the book is available for pre-order, so please do, and then you'll get it bang on the day, on the release day, just a couple of weeks away. But like you say, I'll be talking to Camilla all about the book. I think you can guess what it's about from the title.
Yes,
it
could be a little hint there.
Yeah.
I should quickly say Stroud Pride has responded to this controversy by posting the following statement on their Facebook account. We do not wish for anyone with harmful views to be present at Pride.
Oh.
This includes views that we believe trans people are not part, that believe trans people are not part of the LGBTQ plus community. Sorry, I'm a little bit frazzled because Andrew's here. I miss you so much.
That was adorable. Okay. All right, you guys. Well, that was that. That whole Pride thing is like, it's enough to give you a headache, right? My head is reeling. All right, you guys, I want to thank you for being here so much. Welcome to the new members. And I'm going to try to dig up some interesting topics for tomorrow. If anybody has any suggestions, by all means, leave them in the comments section when this video, when this live stream uploads as a video. And I will see you guys the next time. I'm thinking of bringing Karsten on to talk about Lilo and Stitch, to talk about Rachel Zegler, to talk about Eurovision, because there's been quite a bit of Eurovision drama. And yes, I know it's over, and I know that Austria won. I know that Austria won the judges panel vote. I know that Israel won the popular vote. They got the most popular votes of any act in Eurovision history. There's a whole drama with that. So I'm going to see if I can sweet talk Karsten into coming on tomorrow, and we can all have a conversation. All right, you guys, thanks again, and I will see you the next time. See you later.